Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to the Red Mist Podcast with me, Seshadri, and welcome to a post-match edition of the Red Mist Podcast, where we're going to be talking about Liverpool's 2-0 win in the Champions League round of 16 against RB Leipzig, away from home, although technically even Leipzig were playing away from home. Before we get into the game itself, I just want to say, obviously, with this being COVID and everything, it's a difficult time, and that's kind of why we've had to play the first leg away from home. And I've seen a few people on Twitter comment that obviously that had an effect, given that Leipzig were unbeaten in 13 of their last 15 games at home, and they've had the best defensive record in the Bundesliga as well. And the Red Bull Arena plays a part in it. Now, obviously, they've had to play without fans for all of this season, and it's been difficult for all teams, but definitely I think playing at Red Bull Arena gave them a little bit of an advantage, which I think they may have lost, but it wasn't to the point where I would say it affected the outcome of the game. Now, I've seen a few people on Twitter comment that it might have affected the game, but I don't think it did as much. I think they're used to playing in empty arenas by now, and I just don't think it affected them as much as maybe it might have affected other teams. But yeah, I mean, we played the game in Budapest at the Ferenc Puskás Stadium, and a magnificent stadium, first of all. Never personally been there, but just from what I've seen, it looks really good. It was the home, of course, of two of Leipzig's players, Dominik Szoboszlai, who's injured, not playing, and Willi Orban, who came on as a substitute late on in the game. But yeah, it's a pretty impressive stadium. And it's also the home of Peter Gulaschi, so that's another person. So former Liverpool player, goalkeeper for Leipzig. It's also his home ground for the national team. All three Hungarians there. So it's a little bit of a home game for the German side, I guess. But yeah, no kidding. Obviously, home advantage plays a huge role in the Champions League, especially, but that's only with crowds. I don't know if home advantage without crowds really makes a difference. But that being said, let's just get right to it. Let's just talk about the game itself. Now, before I get into the game, I want to say there's going to be no raw reactions for this game because yesterday I was too tired. And that's the problem with doing raw reactions, is that, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort and energy to do it. And I love doing those episodes, but, especially now I'm in Newcastle, so it's fine. But when I'm in India, I found the kickoff times to be a little bit of a pain. So, and I'm just quite tired when I do these episodes. I still do my best to try and bring them to you, but I think, going forward into the second half of the season, there will be less and less of raw reactions. And, next season, I'm planning to transition just into post-match reactions and stuff, which ties into other stuff that I do have planned. But, it's just a sort of transition period, I guess. It was fun doing raw reactions, and I will still do them from time to time when I feel like it, when I can. But, it's a little more difficult right now. And considering the fact that this is not my primary job, so that's also there. It does, spending that much time and energy at this point in time, especially when I've got other things going on which are more important in life. I think it's a little more difficult. So anyway, that's about what I wanted to say before I got into the game itself. So let's talk lineups. We'll start from the lineups itself. Now, Leipzig's lineup, pretty expected. They came out in 3 at the back, sort of 3-1-4-2 formation that they've been using in the Bundesliga as well. So we've got Peter Gulaschi in goal, Lucas Klostermann, Dayot Upamecano, obviously Bayern Munich bound now, and Nordi Mukiele, all playing in a back three as 3 centre-backs, and then, on either flank. Now, it depends on how you see this, but I personally see Angelino and Tyler Adams as midfielders, as wide midfielders. But there are times when they look like wing-backs especially, so I think just based off of what they've played and how they play this season, I think I would say they're more midfielders than wing-backs, because I've seen other teams that play 5 at the back in the Premier League and elsewhere, even in the Serie A, for example, and they don't play very similarly to what Leipzig play. And so I wouldn't really call them even a 5 at the back. I think it's just 3 at the back, and then it's 3-1 with Kevin Kampl playing in front of them yesterday, and then you've got 4 midfielders, so you've got a left and right and 2 central midfielders. So I think that's kind of how I would class Leipzig. I wouldn't say they're 5 at the back or something like that. But yeah, anyway, so like I said, Kevin Kampl played in front of the back 3. And then on the left, we've got Angelino. In the middle, we've got Marcel Sabitzer and Amadou Haidara. And then on the right, we've got Tyler Adams as well. Up front, we've got Dani Olmo and Christopher Nkunku. Christopher Nkunku obviously is the more sort of striker amongst the two of them. Danny Olmo sort of tends to drop in deep, tends to operate in that space where a number 10 would. And occasionally he does get forward and he does like to take on defenders, try and get a shot in. But he's more of a creator than a forward by trade. So that's kind of Leipzig's formation, 3-1-4-2, something that Nagelsmann's gone a few times with his Hoffenheim side as well. So it's not something that they're unusual. It's not an unusual lineup to see from Leipzig. So no real surprises there. It's kind of their best lineup as well. And Hwang Hee-chan may have played earlier on in the season, but he got COVID and he's been out for a while with that. He did come on yesterday as a sub, and ever since he's kind of recovered from COVID, he's never really broken into the first team. So this is kind of Leipzig's strongest lineup. Now, coming to Liverpool's lineup, very expected lineup. The only thing I'll say is Ozan Kabak making his Champions League debut, and we'll get into his performance a little bit later. But Ozan Kabak was making his Champions League debut, partnering alongside Jordan Henderson, more out of necessity, I would say, I think, because Fabinho's not there, which again means Henderson has to play centre-back. But anyway, we've got Alisson in goal, Trent on the right-hand side, Ozan Kabak, Jordan Henderson, Andy Robertson as the people who complete the back line. In midfield, we've got Gini Wijnaldum, Curtis Jones, Thiago Alcantara. Very expected lineup, no real surprises there. Maybe I'd have expected Shaqiri instead of Curtis, but I personally think Curtis has been really good in the Champions League. Premier League, his form has been sort of up and down, but I really like Curtis in the Champions League. So I do think, starting him was a good decision. And yesterday he didn't look too bad either. So I do think he looks good. And then, of course, you've got the front three of Bobby Firmino, Mo Salah on the right-hand side and Sadio Mane on the left as well. So no surprises there. Probably the strongest Liverpool lineup, really. Looking at the bench, I think the only person who could have maybe staked a claim for a starting place was Xherdan Shaqiri. But honestly, I think in the Champions League, I'd still go with Curtis. I think I would trust Xherdan to play in the Premier League more. I think I would want him to play in the Premier League more because I think what really sort of bugs me with Curtis is that he isn't as experienced enough. I mean, it's not something I hold against him, obviously, but he is creative. He is, he likes to drive forward and stuff. But I think against the Premier League, when he comes up against defenses that stack the numbers, it's kind of a little bit more tentative than Xherdan Shaqiri is. So I think in the Premier League, I'd prefer Shaqiri to start over Curtis, but in general, Curtis has looked good when he's come up against sides that like to play out sometimes, even if it's a little bit on the counter attack. Like he looked really good against Tottenham, for example. So even if it's just a side that likes to play out on the counter attack, he's really good. But if it's a side that just likes to win the ball back and lump it forward, he's not really that effective against them, I feel. But yeah, let's talk about the game itself. First half, I thought right from the get-go we were on it. We showed intent, we showed intensity. And I thought we were just really impressive in the first half. Ozan Kabak, just right off the bat, he looked very, very good, very comfortable on the ball, off the ball. I think he's got a really strong mentality because he made his debut against Leicester. And he made his Liverpool debut against Leicester, not just his Premier League debut, but his Liverpool debut against Leicester. And as a 20-year-old youngster, when you have that incident with your goalkeeper, I think in your debut, I think there's a good chance it can affect your confidence, which, it's nice to see that didn't happen with Ozan. And he looked really comfortable on the ball, ventured forward as well. I remember the first half, he had this moment where he absolutely just bossed it once with a skill move, as you call it if you're playing FIFA. And against someone from Leipzig, I think it was Nkunku or Olmo. It was one of the two, but he bossed it against them, went forward, carried the ball forward as well, looked really confident, really tidy. He had that one miscontrolled pass, but I mean, every footballer in the world has miscontrolled a pass at some point in his life. So it's not really something. I mean, we don't slate Mo Salah for doing that pretty much every game. But look, and I know people will be like, oh, why are you criticizing Mo Salah? Oh. Like, no, Mo Salah miscontrols a lot of passes. And now I know the passes played into him aren't the easiest to control sometimes, but he does miscontrol a fair few. Now, Ozan obviously had that one moment, but other than that, he was just very, very tidy, very composed, looked really, looked like he belonged at centre-back. Now, obviously, he's not going up against, I think, when he played against Jamie Vardy, I think he was very tentative. When he played against Harvey Barnes, he was just very tentative. because of the pace that they have. I don't think he was used to the Liverpool backline. I don't think he was used to the pace of the Premier League. And I think that's something that a lot of players have remarked when they come in from a foreign league. I think it was Luis Suarez in his autobiography. He wrote that when he first came into the Premier League, everything was faster. Like everything, the tackles were faster, the way players converged on you was faster, the speed was faster, the passes were faster, the movement was faster. I think everything, just coming from the Netherlands to England, he found it really difficult to adjust in the initial training sessions. And even players like Peter Crouch, who've been in England playing for a smaller team, and then when they've come to Liverpool, they've mentioned that everything was on point and faster when they played for Liverpool or any big club, really. So I'm not surprised. I think the first game he was a little out of his depth, but I think now this Leipzig game has helped him a lot because, one, I think Leipzig is a little bit of a more familiar opponent to him, having played in Germany just before this. Now, what I will say is, obviously, part of that is because every country, every league has its own sort of culture. And I know teams are different, styles are different, and with sort of movement among clubs of players, of coaches and stuff, the differences may not look as much right now, but I think there are significant differences when you compare the Bundesliga to the Premier League to the Serie A to La Liga. There's significant differences overall. So, I mean, you can always find common characteristics. They may be few and far between, but you can find common characteristics among all 20 Premier League teams, and you can find common characteristics among all 20 Bundesliga teams or all 20 Serie A teams. And, that sort of defines the culture of that country's league. And I guess Kabak, having played against Leipzig, played in Germany for a prolonged period, I think it's really helped him. And I think he's done really well against Leipzig for that reason. Obviously, it's a very minor reason, and I'm kind of nitpicking here, but obviously it is a reason. I think, Ozan Kabak, he looked very assured in the first half, and I was just really hoping that would continue into the second half as well. And it did. Ozan Kabak just throughout the game, he looked really good aerially. He looked really good with his timing on the tackle. His interceptions were on point. And I think part of it also has to do with how Jordan Henderson led at centre-back. I think Hendo had a brilliant game at centre-back. Obviously, maybe didn't have as much to do as maybe he did against Leicester. But what I will say is, I think this was a really good performance from Jordan Henderson at centre-back. So I think, just our centre-back pairing yesterday looked really good, looked in rhythm, and looked very comfortable. And I think it's only going to get better when Fabinho comes back with Kabak, because Henderson's going to move into midfield at that point, which is sort of his natural role. And I think we'll have a more complete looking Liverpool team, a more Liverpool looking Liverpool team, if you will, going into the knockout rounds of the Champions League and the later stages of the Premier League as well, because let's face it, top four is not assured right now. Let's talk about the wing-backs, Trent and Robertson. Obviously, defensively, Trent was facing a major challenge. Angelino, we all know how good he is, how good he's been since he's moved to Leipzig. And Angelino, a couple of early moments. I think throughout the game, Angelino looked good. If I had to sort of compliment one Leipzig player, I think I would say Angelino looked really good throughout the game. Defensively, there were a few questions, but I think offensively, because they were playing three at the back, he was given the freedom to go forward, and he made full use of it. Nearly got 2 chances through the game where he could have, if he'd caught those 2 shots, like if he nailed it, I think they would have been on target. I'm not saying Alisson would not have saved it, but they would have been on target. He would have made Alisson work. I think he wasted a couple of opportunities, just snatched at them a little bit maybe. So I do feel that I would have been different had he converted one of his chances. Even if Leipzig had lost 2-1, I think they would still feel like they have a shot at this. I think it's the 2-0 that kind of makes it really difficult. Andy Robertson on the other side, he had a pretty decent time against Marcel Sabitzer and Tyler Adams. I think Tyler Adams is more defensive. So maybe Robbo was not as productive going forward as you would normally expect from Andy Robertson, but I think he did really well. I thought he was quite solid defensively when he was called upon. I thought he looked good going forward as well when he did go forward. In midfield, obviously we had midfield 3. I thought all 3 of them did really well. Thiago defensively was really good. flew into a few tackles, but generally tended to win the ball. So I'm not gonna slate him too much. I know I've been on his case a little bit, especially in the last episode. I've been on his case a little bit where he goes flying into tackles, gets a yellow. But yesterday he looked good. I think he mistimed about 2 or 3 tackles, but generally he looked really good. Gini Wijnaldum as well. Impressive performance. Didn't maybe get on the stat sheet as far as getting an assist or something goes, but absolutely brilliant. Curtis Jones had an assist. I don't think he meant it to be an assist, really. I think it was just a lob forward looking for Mane. I don't think I think Mukiele just slipped, or he was just put under real pressure by Mane, which led to Curtis's assist, obviously, because Mane would go on to make it 2-0. So yeah, Curtis had a really good game as well. I'm not gonna sit here and slate him for anything. I thought the midfield as a whole was, I think, the best we've seen in a little bit. Now, the front three was definitely the best we've seen in a little bit. I thought Firmino looked sharp, Mo Salah looked sharp, Mane looked sharp. The last episode which I released yesterday, I was criticizing them for their static nature, for how just they just looked like they had no clue at times, the front three. And yesterday was nothing like that. This felt like a Liverpool game. Like, I can't stress that enough. This felt like watching Liverpool again. And I know Leipzig have had their chances, Leipzig have had their moments, and they could have easily been, they could have easily scored 1 or 2 goals. But I think overall, but you kind of expect that from a good team. Like, you're not going to sit there and have 90% of possession, for example, against Leipzig. So you kind of expect that against them. But that being said, it was still a very, very good performance, a top performance from a top team in Liverpool, and the front three were just at the forefront. I thought Firmino looked unbelievable with his link-up plays. He looked like the Firmino of old, and I just hope they can continue this. And same thing with Mo Salah. Salah's obviously, I got a lot of criticism when I left him off my team of the year. And to be fair, at the time, I can justify it because he was getting the goals. That's never been an issue for him. He was getting the goals, but he was just not playing as well. But the last couple of games, even the ones where we lost to Leicester and to Man City, I thought Salah looked better than what he did in the first half of the season. And I'm hoping this is the start of a good run. Mane looked really, really good again. Obviously, he's come under some criticism. I think Mane divides fan opinion a little bit because Salah, the thing is, even if he doesn't play well, he gets his numbers, which I guess sort of covers for how sometimes difficult it is for him to perform. But with Mane, he doesn't have as many numbers or goal contributions as Salah does, which doesn't help mask how bad he plays sometimes. And there have been games where Mane has been bad. Let's not get that twisted. There have been games where Mane has been bad, but yesterday he genuinely looked good. I thought, in terms of overall play, I thought Mane has looked better than Salah this season. Salah's got the numbers, but overall play, Mane has looked better. I think if we were doing hockey assists where the pass before an assist also gets credited with an assist, I would say Mane would probably feature in a lot of those. Now, Mane's been wasteful at times. I've been on Salah's case about being wasteful. Equally, Mane's been wasteful, maybe just with lesser number of chances, but he's been equally wasteful at times. But yesterday looked nothing like it. He looked really good. The run to pressurize Mukiele into the fall was unbelievable. And just his whole game, he looked creative. He looked like he hadn't run out of ideas, and that's just generally the theme of yesterday's game. We looked like we had an answer for everything that Leipzig threw at us, and obviously it starts from the back for Alisson. He had a couple of nervy moments, I remember, and some of his distribution was shaky at best. But overall he looked really good. Obviously, after the last 2 games, I think he needed this game to boost up his confidence. Kabak needed this game because it was his Champions League debut, and the last game he looked a little bit out of his depth. Trent, Robertson, they all needed this game. This whole team needed this game, and I really feel like the Champions League, it's a different competition, it's a different opponent, it's a different style of play there. Once you get to the Champions League, you're playing against teams that also want to go at you, because these are the best teams in Europe. These are the best 16 teams in Europe, and they're going, they have to win. Like everyone has to win, unless, of course, you're Atletico Madrid. But even Atletico Madrid, as much as we accuse them of putting men behind the ball and just being very passive, if you will, what I will say is it's very, like, Atletico is still they're not West Brom, for example. They're not Newcastle, for example. So they still try and go and get at you and try to get the win. Maybe it's on the counter, but they still try to go at you. And that's the difference between European football and Premier League football. Because Premier League football, it's a grind. You're going in. And I know I'm not supposed to complain about opponents and how they play, because how each team plays is their own prerogative. There's no right way to win a football game. And that's fine. Like, I'm not, throwing shade at all these teams. But what I will say is, I think the Champions League, because it's a different competition, it's a different style of play. I think for Liverpool, this was a good reset button. And hopefully, even, against Man City and Leicester. Man City, I thought the first half was really good. Leicester, I thought for most of the game, I thought the first half was kind of meh, just very average. But the second, I thought we did play better than what we did against, teams like Brighton and Burnley, for example. So I do really believe that this is a game that can really galvanize us for the rest of the season, because we do need to be galvanized. Let's face it, we've lost 3 in a row, lost 5 in the last 7. So we do need to be galvanized, or 5 in the last 8, including the Leipzig game. But we do need to be galvanized, and let's not get it twisted. The top 4, we're not in the top 4 right now. Chelsea is, and West Ham is above us in 5th. We're not in the top 4 right now, so getting top 4 is not a formality at this stage. It's never a formality in the Premier League, but more so now than ever. And so top 4 is not done yet, so we do need to have good form in the Premier League as well. Champions League is the only competition that we can realistically win if we really think about it, unless there is a dramatic collapse from Manchester City and Manchester United and Chelsea and West Ham, and unless there's like a massive dramatic collapse, I don't really expect us to be in a title race. So realistically, this is the only competition we can win. So that kind of may have an effect of, okay, this is a good reset button. We can show up, we can play our best football. We just need to play 6 more games. We can play our best football. We can win this tournament, and this season may not be so bad after all. And with players coming back from injury like Naby Keita, Diogo Jota, it may very well be a realistic possibility. In the Premier League, I would say we need to take this momentum and go forward and try and replicate this form into the Premier League. I thought the Leipzig game was a good reset button. It allowed players to get into rhythm. Like I said, the front 3 never looked better in the last 2 months. The midfield looked really good. The defense, for the first time, looked like a good defense, like a quality defense. I'm not going to go ahead and put hyperbole into it, saying this is a Champions League winning defense or a Premier League winning defense, but it looked good. It looked like they knew what they were doing, and that's all I ask for. We can get beaten. That's fine. We may still get beaten in the Champions League. We may still get beaten in the Premier League, but let's not look like a team that has no plan B. Let's not look like a team that's just listless. And that's kind of what I've been asking for. Yes, I would still want I would still want to be in the top 4, get a Champions League place, and I would hopefully still want number 7. But let's take it one thing at a time. Let's take it one game at a time. We took it that way during a title run, and we need to do that right now as well. So I would say the Leipzig game is a good turning point. I think overall performance, I thought we did really well. Just no real complaints from me. I thought even Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, just as soon as he'd come on, he nearly set up a chance with a good cross inside. So I thought even the substitutes did well. Xherdan Shaqiri did well. Nico Williams didn't have much time to impress, so I'm not going to knock him for that. But I thought overall we did really well against a really good team, and this is a good morale boost. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's just one morale boost. It's just you need to rally together as a team, and hopefully this win can get Liverpool to do that. But that is the end of this episode. Like I said at the start, raw reactions will happen this season. I think next season I'm going to get rid of it altogether. But this season it will happen. And may not be for every game, just games that I really feel like doing it. But yeah, that is this is the first, not the first really, but this is a post-game reaction that I've done. I think it's the first one that I've done immediately after a game. So yeah, and when I say immediately after, I'm actually recording it the next day. So yeah, I mean it's a little bit of a mess, I guess, this episode, but I really wanted to keep the spirit of raw reactions without, I guess, the stress of raw reactions. Let's put it that way. But that is the end of this episode of the Red Mess podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Do let me know what you guys think. And wherever you are, stay safe. Have a nice day. Have a nice week. And I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.